Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to film this episode today on the long list of crimes that my mother has been participating in against me for decades, and all of the individuals and agencies who have been involved in all these crimes long term against me. What has all gone on? I'm going to try to name as many crimes as I can, although I am going to miss some. This is kind of a summary of all that. Once arrests are made, I'll be able to sit down and go further into detail and put everything together a little better. However, where I am with things right now, I have so much on my plate and I'm permanently injured from my initial injury 7.5 and 9.5 years ago, that I don't have the functionality to just sit here and make that list right this second. But I do think it's important that this list of names and agencies does get out there with the some of the crimes at least, because investigations still need to happen, arrests still need to be made. It needs to happen immediately. This is not just an isolated incident with the Brownstown Police Department because I have released those videos. There are many other crimes, many other departments, many other high-level officials involved in this. So there's many places and people that need to be investigated. So I'm going to try to include as much as I can in this video. So at the top of all this, at the very root, is my deranged mother, Julie Camarda. She is the one who has orchestrated this entire escapade that's gone on for over 30 years with all these people and agencies believing what they believe about me, taking action on those delusions that she tells them about me. They take action against me, and it turns into crimes against me. It's not just that, it's criminal harassment on all of these people's ends, because it all just piggybacks off the last. Each person and each agency and what they do to me piggybacks off the last, and the fallout has been continuous all these decades. So it all just keeps on going. There's just hundreds and thousands of hundreds or thousands of people who believe all this false information about me, and none of it's real. They have a whole false narrative of a whole false person that doesn't even exist. So yes, at the top, Julie Camarda is responsible for all of this. Her maiden name is Julia Cisneros. So, because my dad also has a sister with the same name, my mother has that last name now. So her birth name is Julia Rita Cisneros. Her name that she goes by is Julie Camarda. So if that clears everything up for everybody, because you could know her as numerous different things. At the root, yes, she's been brainwashing, manipulating, controlling a false narrative, spreading it amongst every person she's ever met, and started this from the time I was a very small child, grew it to where it is today. There's been no contact for over 20 years, no relationship for even longer than that. And everybody has believed everything out of this deranged woman's mouth every step of the way. These are 100% delusions and lies. So that normally spreading gossip and slander isn't criminal. In this case, it is, because all of these people have believed everything they were told about me, and it's caused further permanent physical injury to myself and or my son, since our injuries became extreme almost 10 years ago. So there's been numerous incidences since then, and it is criminal in nature because of what has come out of it. So you'd have to sit down with me to get a full understanding, and it would take me at least an hour or two to explain this to somebody, everything that's gone on, every step of the way, all the people and agencies. So at some point during this, when I was a small child, she was able to manipulate my dad to believe this false narrative about me. He just wasn't mean to me and didn't act strange toward me. And we just kept a separate relationship with him once I bought my own home when I was 18. And I branched off and cut her off completely and her entire family. So what I've noticed that she has done is that she has gotten my dad to make police false statements to police and other agencies about me. But it's actually her brainwashing him over the long haul, over the course of decades, repeating delusions to him about me while they're home alone. Now, she has also done this with both of my older kids and many other individuals as well. And quite a few family members. I mean, it's really everybody she knows, anybody she's ever met who thinks they know something about their daughter. It's pretty much everybody. So she's just continued this on long-term, very large scale to keep what she has had planned in the background going. Now, I already released a video where I talk about how my mother had stolen a trust fund from me that was left from me as a small child. That is what is at the root of all of this gossip, slander, all these crimes, all this harassment, and the false narrative in general had to flow, and she had to make others believe it and operate against me on it to gain access to this trust fund that doesn't belong in her possession. She gained access by portraying herself to have custody of and had raised my older two kids when none of that was ever real. But because of the damage and the manipulation, the repeating, the delusions, the brainwashing, and I had no contact, and my dad was allowed to leave with my kids and take them to his house with my mother years ago. It's been over 12 years since that's really been allowed to happen. She was able to repeat enough delusions to them to where there is a permanent issue. They don't live in reality about everything that has gone on. There's no way they even comprehend it fully, what has actually gone on. They weren't even alive when a lot of this stuff began, when it happened, how it got to where it is. And then once I became injured, she went really heavy with repeating many more delusions to them to cause extreme chaos within my household because she had no direct access to me and was using my kids through my dad to cause all these incidences to happen at my house, cause all these police phone calls, cause all these CPS phone calls, and cause everybody to be screaming at me when I was in a fight for my life, treating an inpatient injury on an outpatient basis. And I couldn't have sound, suffering from 50, 60 severe symptoms at once, while my brain was swelling, sagging, and bleeding and leaking cerebral spinal fluid out my ears the entire time that was going on. It was going on in an extreme manner for about 3 years. But she is at the root of that. She caused all of that. And at the root, she was also the person who caused the injury to not be treated initially when it became known and extreme. She was still working in the medical system for Beaumont Hospital, and she made sure that I was left untreated and my younger son was left untreated numerous times. So, and then she did that intentionally so she could cause more suffering, because that's part of the Munchausen by proxy. They cause physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering. And that's what she was doing. So then she repeated all these delusions to all these people around me, knowing I was in extreme fight for my life, knowing there's no way to survive what I went through without hyperbaric oxygen treatment, and years of it because it was that extreme. And she just wasn't expecting me to be able to cough up almost 200 grand out of pocket and find a private facility to make that happen. So that's where she went wrong, and I managed to at least get to where I am today, although I am permanently injured, permanently disabled for the rest of my life, because there are still ongoing effects, ongoing symptoms every day. So she is at the root of all of that. Those are some of the main people she used to just further blow my life apart after many decades of other crimes that have already been committed. So along the way, she's used numerous family members, and I do believe there could be possible notarized statements from family members backing up that she had custody of and raised my kids in order to gain access to this trust fund. I'm not sure. I do believe it's a possibility, and it would explain certain behaviors and things that have happened along the way. So it still belongs in my possession. There is still money left in it. I don't know how much was in it, but it must have been a lot for the things to occur that have occurred. And I know she has been attempting to access what's left the last few years. That's why all these other crimes have been happening against me. So you would have to talk to me in private to really get all of this information and fully get to the bottom of everything, because there's just no way for me to explain it in all the videos. But I do need investigators to reach out to me immediately. This is very extreme. I'm in need of this money immediately. I am under Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It's due to all of these decades of crimes, the fallout of all the other crimes, and the piggybacking of each batch of crimes all this time. That's why I'm under Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Literally every problem in my life currently at the root is my deranged mother and all of her criminal actions and the actions of all these individuals who have helped her. The same thing, back in 2011, I filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. She's also responsible for that. At the root, her actions led to that as well. So there should have never been any bankruptcies, especially when I was left this trust fund. She needed to portray me to look mentally disordered and or just be this criminal or this broke loser who isn't going anywhere in life, so she could have access to this money. And that's what's been at the root. And a lot of these individuals who are involved in the crimes have taken bribery payments as well. And that's why they've participated in the crimes as well. Some of them have just participated not knowing anything about the trust fund, just to have a sense of power and feel good about themselves, attacking somebody who's innocent. So I I don't know exactly which family members. I have a pretty good idea if there is some notarized statements regarding that matter. On top of that, she had a fiduciary duty to notify me of this trust at a certain time frame, which she did not. She was not expecting me to have all this brain damage and memories to come back after the initial injury happened years ago, and thought she was just going to get away with this, and I was never going to say anything, or I wasn't going to figure it all out, because all the memories did come back pertaining to all of that. So I'm 100% certain everything I'm saying. I just don't have certain information. So along the way, she did use Brownstown, Michigan Police Department for about 25 years. Their entire department cannot be trusted, and the entire department needs to be investigated because there's just so many officers who were involved in this incident or that along the way, and each time they've participated in the crimes against me. So I would say there's at least 5 officers. I have called some of them directly, and they just act like I'm crazy, or that I didn't call and say what I just said, or that I wasn't over here reporting all my mother's crimes. They're just acting like, oh, the mother said she's always had this mental disorder. Oh, she's just crazy. And then they hang up, and then they've deleted numerous sets of reports and statements that I've made. They've completely deleted them from their system, although there is some proof that I did make some reports along the way, because everything pieces together as one giant picture. So they are directly responsible for tampering with evidence and getting rid of some evidence within their department. At the top of that list is Detective Mike Ramsey, and Kristen Tolax was the one who took the most recent reports from my mother last year, and the two of them launched a false investigation on me with no intention of ever actually investigating or talking to me, just believing the deranged lunatic and her false narrative about me when I have all the proof who committed the crimes. So if you watch the video on the Brownstown Police, Mike Ramsey promises false fraud charges on me, part 1 and 2. It explains everything. I proved everything in the video. I have even more proof than that in my possession. But it's way more than that, because there's many other crimes that have happened within Brownstown. Numerous counts of kidnapping. My mother has kidnapped my older 2 kids numerous times. Brownstown police believing my mother has always had custody. Them refusing to return my kids to me numerous times for a very long period of time, causing extreme destruction, extreme fallout. It's still ongoing today, 4 years later. So, yeah, so there's numerous sets of kidnappings, numerous sets of fraud. There was an attempted murder on my life in Brownstown at their house in 2021. She's made many false police reports along the way, and she's also had my dad make false police reports just by repeating delusions to him. I do have some proof of this as well. There's many different crimes in Brownstown. Brownstown and Flat Rock have the most amount of crimes, because that's where I've lived for 8 years in Flat Rock, and their house has been in Brownstown for like 33 years or so. So those 2 departments need full investigations. There's been so many crimes in Flat Rock as well, with my mother also placing delusional phone calls to the police department in Flat Rock, making all these false statements about who I am as a person, continuing on with the false narrative. I do believe she may even be telling people I'm mentally unstable with a gun, and or other people have been paying my bills here at this house the entire time. None of that's real, but it causes them to criminally harass me, criminally threaten me, the police directly. So Sergeant Matthew Welchinsky has threatened me numerous times directly and has caused extreme bodily harm, and had reversed over $100,000 worth of the treatment I paid for out of pocket to regrow my brain tissue while I was treating that inpatient injury as an outpatient situation. And he had falsely arrested me on the delusions he was told through these phone calls long term. And what I've come to figure out since I've been requesting documents, a lot of these delusional phone calls are not reported in these police department system. There's no record of them. She either gets a hold of somebody she knows and calls their personal line, or they delete it altogether from their system. Either way, everything she's saying in these phone calls to all these places and people, those are all delusions. None of it's ever been real, all along. So, within Flat Rock, yes, there are numerous different situations, numerous different crimes, false arrest, numerous threats from that city's police department, them not going to get my daughter once she stole my mortgage payment. That's another crime that they had committed, because it was a lot of money, and because of my mother's delusional phone calls, they believe I was just this broke loser and I didn't have the money in the first place, which is not real. That can all be proven. The people who know me can prove can back up everything I said, and I had witnesses there when I made that report initially. So nothing was ever done about that. It led right into the Brownstown, Michigan Police Department situation on that same exact day, and my daughter being kidnapped and more crimes being committed in Brownstown. Flat Rock and Brownstown were participating together at the same exact time with a string of crimes during that incident in October 2021. So it's not just that. There's many other crimes Flat Rock is involved in, many other times. They didn't take my reports on numerous different situations. These were all serious situations. Here I am living in a medical emergency, sick, suffering, and they're just harassing me, not taking my report seriously. Each time they're not doing anything, it's causing more fallout and chaos in my life, ongoing crimes to be occurring and other problems to occur due to them not doing their job and them believing the reports of a deranged lunatic versus somebody who's self-made, self-built, been on their own since they were 18. It doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. These are all delusions. So both of those police departments need a full investigation. So I guess you would have to bring in the U.S. Marshals for that because, and or the FBI, because how else would you take down entire police departments full of people with loaded weapons? It's not just them. There is Romulus Police has made false statements about me in their reports. They also did not take seriously the reports that I had made in advance of my mother's crimes. And then once the crimes did happen, they also did not investigate properly. And then they turned around and tried to help her make a false report on me. They didn't end up going forward with it. But the problem is I have proof of what she's been doing all along the way. My dad has been in Romulus for 2.5 years. There are many crimes that have happened in Romulus at the care facility where my dad is. And so Romulus hasn't done anything about it. My dad's food had been poisoned many times at that facility by my mother. I'm 100% certain, but they don't want to believe how I know this. They wrote some false information about me just not showing up with medical records. That's not how this works. That's not what's going on. The type of poison she uses, how it all works, it's not going to be found. Especially when it comes to me, there wouldn't be medical records and it being found in my system. There's a whole other situation with how I know this because my system is permanently damaged and from her poisoning food long term. And then with my injuries and my brain tissue being open, it's a separate situation. But the poison loads up immediately in my system, in my brain. So it's not questionable that that's what happened. They didn't look into any of it. My dad's been poisoned many times in that city with all of that going on over there. And I do believe that the care facility where my dad is in Romulus, that my mother has told them that I'm mentally unstable with a gun. And I do believe that's why they called the police on me last October in 2024. So this delusion has been going around all over different towns, different family members, different police departments. It's not real. None of that ever happened. Or she's saying I threatened them with a gun or something. None of that's real. There's a lot of people who believe that that's real. None of that was ever real. Now, it would not surprise me if my two older kids have participated in some of these situations, and she has managed to trick them into saying and doing certain things, especially when it comes to that trust fund and her stealing assets from me and or my dad. It's a possibility that she has roped the two of them into those crimes. I'm not really sure. There's no way to prove it without raids being made and investigations being done. So Special Tree Spinal Care Facility in Romulus also needs to be investigated with the amount of crimes I've reported to the state, with what I've reported to Special Tree in advance, and then my mother is able to commit her crimes after I report it in advance, and I warn them what she's going to do. She's allowed to get away with it. She does it after I report it to them. They didn't take any of that seriously. They also believe an entire false narrative about me. None of it's real. They're all on delusions, and I'm banned from the facility on all of these delusions. When she's the one who's been committing the crimes and spreading a false narrative. So very serious crimes going on at Special Tree as well. Beaumont Hospital, my mother was a 45-year employee there, and she used other staff members to enter false information into mine and my younger son's medical file and my dad's as well. I do have a piece of paper proving some of what she had put in my dad's record a couple years ago. And I did read some of what was written in mine and my son's initially. I can't log in currently due to the name change, I think is why, of the hospital. But she used other individuals to make sure that we did not receive treatment in an extreme medical emergency on more than one occasion by inserting herself, saying more delusions while she was there in person. So when it shows up in my medical file, you can tell it's written by a different employee, but what they wrote came out of my mother's mouth. because my injuries were so extreme and I wasn't getting proper care, which was at the root her. And so the way I looked, they were judging me on what I looked like. And she's stating I just have this mental disorder. And when you have that many brain injuries and you're suffocating and you're overloaded with carbon monoxide to an extreme degree where you're barely alive, suffering 50, 60 severe symptoms at once, it looks like a mental disorder. So when she was telling those people that stuff, that's what they believed, and they entered it into my file, booted me from the hospital every single time, and it's caused many further issues down the line, even after she was retired from Beaumont, because that information is permanent in my file. And every time I was near death and brought back there, I was kicked right out onto the street with no help whatsoever, even after dying for 15 minutes at Walmart, being on the floor dead, brought in and kicked right out. So there's numerous sets of crimes going on there, many different sets of falsified medical records. I can pinpoint a lot of it. Also, Apex Behavioral Health in Inkster back in the year 2000. My mother fed a psychiatrist there a bunch of false information about me to help grow her false narrative. While I was 16 years old, she was attempting to begin to gain access to this trust fund, trying to point me as mentally disordered. And she had used a psychiatrist, gave her all this information about me. That lady entered it, put me on some pills I didn't belong on. I was already gainfully employed and getting ready to purchase my first home. I was already making moves to do that at that time, knowing she was a danger. I didn't fully understand it, but I knew it was a serious situation. And that lady wrote false records about me as far as a mental health concern would go. She wrote some false information, prescribed me pills I should have never been given, and then I was charged with a felony for those pills that I should have never been given in Brownstown back then in the year 2001. So Brownstown Police is responsible for that. And it was the school cop at Woodhaven High School, Officer Sue Meter, who was involved in helping my mother do that to me. So she got me charged with a felony for the pills she got this psychiatrist to give me that should have never been given to me in the first place. And it was her just making up this whole false narrative, trying to grow it on paper so she could begin to gain access to this trust fund that doesn't belong in her hands. She farmed it along the way, grew it over the course of time back then. So that is another issue. I said I would do a video on my criminal record because a lot of what is on there shouldn't be on there. A lot of half of what's on there is the result of the fallout of all these ongoing crimes against me and false information being passed around about me as well, or the harassment. It's a mix of things. So I'll get to that in its own episode. Then we have Monroe County Friend of the Court in 2 separate years, 2013, 2021, 22. There was different situations going on, 2 totally different situations, but she had hired an attorney and their whole office, I believe. I don't know if it was one specific attorney. I'd have to look through the papers. I don't have all of the papers in my possession, but I'm working on getting the rest of those. So there was an attorney's office and at least one attorney involved in that. Could be more than one. Where she kidnapped my kids in 2013 and 2022, and had my kid's dad also sign some false documents, both of them actually. And then the girl my oldest kid's dad was with also signed some false documents about me as well. So her name is Laura Romans. And then you have Christopher Smith and Aaron Flynn. So they have all signed fraudulent documents regarding stuff about me that was never real, and it allowed my mother to kidnap my kids. And she also used Brownstown Police to do that as well, numerous times throughout those kidnappings. And then led to my daughter being truant for that year and a half. She's still not graduated today, and she's 20. So there's numerous issues with all of that. She's never had custody of any of my kids. Those are all delusions. With my oldest son, Phoenix, he did have we went to Wayne County Friend of the Court because that's where his case was out of. And there were some fraudulent documents that were submitted to that court. And my mother paid a different attorney's office to do that as well. So I don't have that information directly. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it. I did try to get it last year and I didn't get anywhere. But I'm still attempting to try to gather those documents. So that was done using all those people, those additional people to help her. And these people were mooches looking for a handout. They thought that they were going to get money from me, even though my son was like 12 or 13. I think he was 12 at that time. They thought they were going to get money from me is what they were attempting to do. They each had their own agenda. And then my mother had her agenda of attempting to gain access to more of this trust fund by like getting custody of my kids. So she used different circumstances to blow things apart in a million different directions, and it caused all this chaos and ruckus, and she's disrupting my life, everything I'm building, my plans, kidnapping my kids. This has gone on numerous times throughout my life, so it's still ongoing today. All these issues, all the fallout, all still ongoing. Problems with everybody in my life due to all of this. And then you have the Monroe County Probation Department from 2023 to 2025. You have Stephanie Pride and William Jewell, who also participated in these crimes long term. My mother was calling Stephanie Pride repeatedly, placing delusional phone calls to her, stating my medical documents are not real. I have this mental disorder. I was never injured. She kept harassing me and wanting me to stay on probation, wanting me to go to jail, not comprehending the seriousness of my injury, all because of what my mother was telling her. Both of them were screaming in my face numerous times. Again, I have 5 brain injuries. And even after I had received the sentencing, which I already knew I couldn't do what they were asking me to do due to the condition and how injured I am, they're judging me on what I look like. They kept screaming in my face that I had to do it or I'm going to jail. It wasn't possible. They kept passing off my medical documents as if those weren't real because of what my mother was calling and saying to them in the background. So there's some disability crimes occurring right there within that department, and it was extreme harassment. There are people who can back this up. So there is, like I said, Charmaine has been involved. She's the main mental health professional, been involved for 5.5 years. She watched all of this happen to me. She was one of the ones who wrote some of these medical documents for me as well. She has watched what I've been through every step of the way for the last 5.5 years. And she's very well aware that what they were asking me to do just isn't possible to do. So there's numerous problems with that. Numerous crimes happened there. And then you have Terry Knorr of North Star Care Facility, who is in charge of my dad's care for the workers' comp situation. And she has participated in numerous crimes. So if you watch my other videos, I mentioned her in a couple of videos. She has participated in numerous different crimes along the way regarding my dad's care and false documentation and such. And I spoke to her in the very beginning, and she turned around and jumped on my mother's team and operated against me and began committing crimes right off the rip. So I can talk more about that. Once there's an investigation going on, I can go further into depth with more on that. Then my mother inserted herself at Vibra Hospital inside Beaumont in Taylor, Michigan. You have Makia Moore and Celesta Washington, who helped remove me from the hospital on my mother's delusions at that time. I'm not sure exactly what she was saying to them. Whatever it wasn't real. And I asked for numerous detectives. I said I need at least 2 police officers, preferably a detective and another police officer, because she's been getting away with decades of serious crimes. And they tried to make it look like I've always had this ongoing mental disorder. They refused to give me any police. They refused to let me make a proper report on any of what was going on. But during this time, I couldn't just directly go to the police department because the amount of chaos and crimes that were all ongoing at this time, it wasn't even possible for me to address, even trying to go make a report at the police department separately during the time that all went on. And then later down the line, my dad did die and come back, and then he was transferred back to Vibra down the line. And when he came to, he was asking why I wasn't there. My daughter had to advocate for him, and then they were able to release whatever bullshit they had said about me that were stopping me from coming into the hospital. I don't know what they did because I don't know what was said, but then they allowed me to come see him that second time he was there. It doesn't matter. Those people were still participating in the crimes. It's all false information. It's getting entered into people's medical file, all these delusions every step of the way. Then you have U of M Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The head of the social work department in the emergency room, that lady is directly responsible for some of these crimes, not taking my report seriously, believing the delusions about me. Also their security department, and I know they have their own police because I've contacted them, and all of the reports I've made are not there. So there's something wrong with the police at the U of M hospital, the security department, and the social work, the lady in the head of the social work department in the emergency department. And I also went to their main office within the hospital in the social work department a different time, and nobody there took me seriously either. So there's numerous people that need to be investigated within that hospital. Those are all delusions. Those are all crimes. There's a bunch of false information being entered into my dad's medical file about me and keeping me banned from him, all on delusions. So, and then again, he's being rushed back there after she's poisoning his food repeatedly, and they weren't taking me seriously. And basically, the lady in the social work department had said that they're going to allow her to continue to do that. They're not going to do anything about it, and they're just going to treat my dad with the symptoms that he comes in with every time, even though it's her poisoning the food. They're just going to let her keep doing it. That's what the lady said to me directly. So after that, I was banned permanently. I'm banned as a patient and as a visitor at most of the hospitals anywhere within driving distance of my home, which has caused further complications. When I become re-injured, my injury came out a lot worse than it should have been because of my mother's crimes, because of her involvement in the medical system, and then because she has all these false reports between my dad and I and my younger son. And anytime I seek treatment or I'm trying to see somebody at the hospital, I'm removed immediately. So it's caused many different issues. And then long-term, there's Child Protective Services in Monroe County, Wayne County, and Lucas County, Ohio. So Monroe County and Wayne County are in Michigan. Courtney Villarreal in Monroe County, Michigan. She has caused some of the most damage because I was forced away from the first home that I owned due to her participating in the crimes against me, operating on my mother's behalf. That caused extreme financial fallout. Because it led to further financial fallout down the line due to the result of what she had caused. Then you have Lucas County, Ohio, happened in 2023. After I tried to report my mother's crimes, she then called Lucas County, Ohio CPS and said some things that were all false. I never made contact with them, but there is false information in the report. And then Wayne County, Child Protective Services. I do have the most of the file from Wayne County from, I think it's an 18-year time span. I will read that in its own video. There is more that happened after I ordered those reports though, so there is additional information. So that's going to take me an entire video just to read the reports I do have on those. It's all false reports. It's all my mother repeating delusions, her information being in there from day one back in 2002. Everybody seeing she's my mother. The mother's always right, as she says. And all these delusional people believe the deranged lunatic. And it just keeps on going. It's been going on the whole time. So all those reports, everything in those reports is false information. All the harassment, it's all extreme harassment. There's been at least 20 different attempts to try to visit me, harassing me, trespassing on my property. Many different crimes have occurred with Wayne County CPS. With Monroe, it's mostly Courtney Villarreal. There was a few other CPS workers involved in the mix of that initially a long time ago. But Courtney Villarreal is the main one out of Monroe. Many different workers within the Wayne County one and one within Lucas County, Ohio. So Adult Protective Services as well. Many different workers refused to take any of my reports regarding my dad's situation, how he was in danger, what my mother's causing, what's all going on. At the top of that list is Megan Kinder, who also lied in probate court on my mother's behalf. She actually took a statement out of my court documents that I submitted stating what my mother has been doing and the effects of the poison food, what it causes. And she word for word took what I said about these are facts of what my mother has done, and then said, "Oh, I caused all those symptoms," word for word. But I did it, doing something totally different. So you would have to get the court documents and the record for that. But it is all provable because that was last year. It wasn't even a year ago, so it was fairly recent. But she committed numerous crimes, lying in court and making up an entire false narrative. And so did the guardian ad litem, Mohammed Bazi, and the judge, Terrence A. Keith, also let this all go on in his courtroom. He must not have read the reports, or he did, and he agreed to let the crimes continue on. Everything they wrote in my mother's case to get custody of my dad, it's all false information. She used Brownstown Police Department to concoct a false fraud investigation on me, give the false information to her so she could take to the Wayne County Probate Court, where they then promised her custody of my dad, whereas Detective Mike Ramsey in Brownstown's over here promising my mother that she's going to lock me up in prison long term, that he's going to lock me up in prison long term, as long as she gets custody in probate court. Well, she took the false documents from him, took them to probate court, got those people to believe it, and then a whole false court case happened on my dad's custody because the intention was to get me locked up long term, because that's what Detective Mike Ramsey is telling her. Well, no, I can get her locked up long term as long as you get custody of him. Oh, okay, we'll help you get custody of him. Here's these false reports. Go ahead, take them down to probate. They're going to believe everything you say, which they did. They all lied in court. I can prove it. And then I also sent numerous emails to Mohammed Bazi, and I carbon copied Charmaine in these emails so that there was somebody that could prove that I sent these emails. We had these communications between us, and he did not do what he was ordered to do. Instead, he continued on with the false information about me, entered it onto into the false court documents that were printed out, and they operated as if that entire situation was real when none of it's real, and I've already proved it in videos I've already released. So this can all be proven. I do have all of the information regarding that, and those emails back and forth also prove the crimes of Mohammed Bazi as well. There are many other attorneys involved in different attorneys' offices involved in this situation long term, because this has, like I said, been going on for over 30 years in total. So there is numerous sets of attorneys involved in all of these crimes. And I would have to like really dig for some paperwork. I can kind of pinpoint where some of it is. I do have some of it, but there are others involved. So I don't have all of the names of those people in the moment. But I did contact Wayne County Prosecutor's Office last year, and I talked to somebody from the office earlier this year. I believe it was the same person. I talked to Brian White. I told him numerous times how serious the situation is. These are RICO crimes. These crimes are ongoing. They piggyback off the last. It's very large scale. It's very organized. There's all these individuals involved. And he's acting like this is some type of abuse case where I need to call adult protective services and my mommy's abusing me. Not comprehending I've been a full-blown adult since I was 18, owning my own homes, my own properties, and he's not in reality about what I'm telling him is going on, and I'm only able to get out 1% of what's happened because he doesn't want to believe something that extreme and large scale is going on with all these different police departments and all these people participating in the crimes. He's not listening to what's actually going on. So I've talked to him twice, and he's not with the reality of any of this. So also along the way, let's see, we also have, okay, so I said the Wayne County Probate Court. I actually have the case number for it. The case number for the Wayne County Probate Court is 2024-895665-GA. So that is the false probate court case that played out regarding my dad's custody, and then everybody in the mix promising my mother custody, promising false charges on me. At the root of that, she needs me charged so she can gain access to the rest of the trust fund. She needs me in prison. So a lot of these people involved in this, they have taken bribery payments. I do believe Detective Mike Ramsey has taken a bribery payment or 2 or 10 along the way because he's been involved long term. Probably numerous other officers within the Brownstown Police Department as well. I can tell you that there is proof of these payments being made. I will tell you that. I won't go into detail, but I will say that once an investigation is started, I can tell you at least a few people involved and where you can find this information. So I don't, like I said, don't have all of it, but I do know some of it. Some of it I can't say yet in the videos because it hasn't blown yet and the investigation hasn't gone on yet. But I'm making the video because the investigation needs to happen. So all of these people, all these agencies, they've all participated in all of this every step of the way. Also included in that, not just Flat Rock Police Department, but the city of Flat Rock. So during the Ford gas spill in 2021, when my mother inserted herself in it, told them all these delusions about me, the entire city of Flat Rock, in the fallout of all of what happened during that and what kept happening and continued to happen, more and more crimes kept happening because of me being forced out of my home, because of her calling them, telling them I've never been injured. I'm making the whole thing up. I'm not living with my brain tissue open. My son and I were never injured. She told them all types of delusions. They fully believe I have this mental disorder. They participated, and so did Christine, who ran the Ford spill in 2021 in Flat Rock. She's at the top of Ford. They all participated in causing me to nearly die again. And all the fallout and all the chaos and the problems I'm currently dealing with are the result of all of their crimes and what they participated in at that time. Us living with our brains bleeding, us living on the floor here with our brains bleeding, being forced out of our home, forced to go buy the other home, forced to put a tenant in this home when I had other plans for this home, then all the $100,000 plus in damage that happened to this home. It's the result of all of that. The city of Flat Rock, the police department, and Christine at the top of Ford in Flat Rock. They're all involved in what has all happened and all the crimes coming out of that and what's all still going on. So that's the majority of the people in the agencies. However, there's more. I know there's more. Just because there's so much, there's so many, I'm not going to be able to get all of it. But I do know for a fact, yes, my mother poisons food. She's been doing it for decades. I do have one sample saved. I did have quite a few more as the private lab that I hired several years back. They directed me to do so. But with all the moving back and forth, a lot of my samples were lost, all except for one. And the one sample I do have is the sample from the food that she left for my dad when he walked off the scissor lift while she was in California. That is the sample that I have. She left it specifically for him. Nobody else had access to it but him. It was specifically for him. I do believe it played a role in his fall. So I'm 99.9% certain you will find whatever substance she uses in the sample that I have. That is the only one I have left out of all the samples I had collected in the past 6 years or so. I lost all of them. So I'd be willing to share half that sample if somebody's willing to test it properly. And by properly, I mean every category of substances. And maybe conversing with the lab first that I hired, because that person understood and I understood how it worked and how you find the substance, whereas a hospital does not understand that. A regular lab does not understand how to find the substance. So I would be willing to share half of that sample. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's more. There's more phone calls. There's more delusional phone calls, more agencies and people involved. These are the biggest ones. There was a problem with the orthodontist office where my older two kids had their braces. My oldest kid had his braces off. He was already 18. The only person who could have signed on it was me. She had that lady in that office who takes care of the front desk, had her convinced that she's always had custody of and raised my older two kids, that she's paying for it, she's responsible for this, she's the legal guardian. And that lady played along with this and caused all these problems while I was in an extreme fight for my life without help in the medical system, with my brain extremely swollen, and caused all these problems during that time period, and allowed my mother to sign off on my son's braces when it was all what that was happening during that time. It was all for criminal intent, because she wanted to take that paper to the private attorney's office, who's holding the rest of my trust fund, to say, see, I paid for his braces. See, I'm the legal guardian. I signed the paper. So that's what she was looking for regarding that matter. And then she put my daughter on her taxes this most recent tax year of 2024. Same thing. She did it to take it to the attorney's office to prove, see, I have custody of her. See, she's my dependent. I need the rest of the trust fund. So that's what she's been doing. These are all the people and the agencies involved. There is more, but those are the major ones, the major players in the game, the ones who need the most investigating. These are RICO crimes. There is many people involved in all of this. So I need someone to reach out to me. I do believe my contact information, my email at least, is in the bottom description box of these videos. So if someone can reach out to me, or just Google my legal name, and please show up and tell me you finally launched an investigation so someday I can pick up the pieces of my life. Because there are just so many people involved in all of this. There's no way to get this under control properly. Again, much more, and I've just barely scratched the surface of the crimes, what I had said in this video. There's a lot more to all of this. So I will be back with more. Thanks. Bye.